welcome back to Open Remote. So COVID-19 has impacted people and the economy, but it's also impacted the environment. And our next guest is the lead advocate for climate justice and the executive director for UPROSE, Brooklyn's oldest Latino community-based intergenerational and multiracial organization that exercises sustainability and resiliency. She's been recognized by Vogue as a climate warrior, and she's here to tell us about UPROSE and her initiative, hashtag Our Power PR NYC, along with current environmental issues. Please welcome Elizabeth Yeampierre. Hi.
Hey. Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you. And blessings to you on your recovery.
Thank you, Ashe.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was rough.
I think, no, I mean, it's these are some really uncertain times that we're dealing with. And right now, I think everyone is basing their feelings and their emotions on what the media is providing as information. And I think at this point, the fear is that everybody's just going to end up hospitalized, yet you were able to recover in your home on your own.
I was. I think people forget sometimes that those of us who were born and raised in the communities that we serve, that run community organizations, are also personally impacted. And I lost 4 members of my family. My son lost 2 friends. And we all got COVID at home. And I was probably the one who was most impacted because of my underlying health conditions. And it was pretty scary. It lasted for weeks. I was able to measure my oxygen levels and my pulse. And there was a day where my pulse was 224, like I was short of going into cardiac arrest. I didn't want to go to the hospital because I felt that I would die there. And I did things that I thought that I learned later were the right things to do, like turning on my side. I took lots of showers to bring down the fever. Just a lot of things. I prayed a lot. And I was terrified. And I think that I'm a little bit traumatized. People don't talk about the mental health issues that we're enduring as a result of this experience of not only being fragile in the midst of all of it, but also being surrounded by sirens going on 24/7 and losing loved ones. I was born and raised in an EJ community, an environmental justice community. And so it wasn't surprising that those communities that have been most impacted all over the United States are people of African and indigenous ancestry. Those are the people suffering from asthma, upper respiratory disease, and diabetes, which is related to environmental burdens. So yeah, but I'm good. I'm good now. But thank you so much for asking. I'm happy to share the experience if it lifts people and it makes them feel like they're going to make it through.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being so transparent about it and open, because at the end of the day, the idea of environmental justice is it serves in various forms. Like, to just share with everyone a little bit about UPROSE and the work that you guys are doing, because I love the fact that you're intergenerational, you're multiracial, and that the idea is to exercise resilience.
Yeah, so we're a women of color-led intergenerational organization, which means that we believe that leadership is a continuum and that we are more leaderful and more powerful when different generations are working with each other and learning and building across the table. So we have young people on our board, on our staff. We don't have like a youth program. We've sent 4 young people to Antarctica on scientific expeditions and 3 to the North Pole. We organize the largest gathering of young people of color on climate change in the country. And we work at the intersection of racial justice and climate change. We started doing environmental justice back in 1996 when we realized that we couldn't fight for housing, for employment, for social justice if we couldn't breathe, and that our communities were the ones that were really suffering health disparities as a result of environmental racism. And we've evolved since then. We've learned a lot of new things. We just launched the first community-owned solar cooperative in the state of New York. Without knowing, how do you create something like that? What does the financing look like? We're just fearless about that. And really sort of surround ourselves with people who can provide us with the information that we need so that we could do unconventional things, because we're living in unconventional times.
So that's wonderful. That's a great segue into our power or hashtag our power PR NYC because right now Puerto Rico is really on the brinks of having no choice but to figure out how to sustain itself.
Yeah. Our Power PR NYC grew out of a national campaign through the Climate Justice Alliance because we were talking about what a just recovery would look like for frontline communities that were vulnerable to extreme weather events and climate change. And there had been a disaster in Houston, and that language comes out of there. And then when Puerto Rico was hit, I was co-chair of the CJA, and I'm Puerto Rican. UPROSE was founded by Puerto Ricans in 1966, and I couldn't neglect Puerto Rico. We came up with the idea of how do we as diaspora Ricans support the front line, not supplant leadership, not duplicate the work, not helicoptering with solutions, but how do we support the people on the ground in a way that is strategic and honors their leadership and their brilliance. And so the whole concept came, we call it a just recovery, a people to people just recovery. So Puerto Rico really is the canary in the coal mine. Not only is it dealing with the impact of colonialism, and, you know, when we talk about climate justice, we're talking about the people who have suffered from extraction, colonialism, and slavery. Puerto Rico is a model of that. And so what you're seeing right now is how capitalism has shown up, and it's shown up through climate change. All of these physical and structural impacts are a result of exploitation over time. And so it's
Right.
not
I mean, we just had earthquakes this past
exactly,
Saturday. And are
exactly.
those earthquakes really natural
So,
occurrences?
so people are saying, and I don't know, I'm not a scientist, I'm an organizer, but people are saying, well, these earthquakes have nothing to do with climate change. But if you've got a tiny island that was hit by a Cat 5 hurricane, I would think that it would shake the foundation of a little island like that, and that it could cause that kind of seismic activity. Also, there's a lot of development and a lot of infrastructure in Puerto Rico that is not sustainable, that has been created by U.S. corporations. That there are 23 super funds in Puerto Rico, toxic lands that when hit by a Cat 5 hurricane disperses and becomes toxics that are in intoxicants that are in the land, in the air, in the water. So it is really a situation that is a lot more challenging than anybody can imagine. But what I can say that's positive is that the people in Puerto Rico have the solutions, and that it's our responsibility to support them in operationalizing those.
And so, how has becoming co chair of the Climate Justice Alliance assisted with all of your endeavors? Because you have your hands in a lot of places.
Well, I've been playing. I've been very blessed to be in positions of leadership for a while. I was chair of the National Environmental Justice Advisory Council of EPA, the first Latina to do that, and I've been doing a lot of. The CJA was just a really great opportunity because it's a national alliance of frontline organizations that stand in solidarity with each other, share resources, share strategy, and so that each community is benefits from the brain trust of the collective. And a lot of our organizations, our communities are affected in the same way, whether it's Detroit, whether it's Indian country and Indian reservations, whether it's communities that are Appalachian, whether it's the Gulf South. All of us are threatened because of extreme weather events that we didn't contribute to creating. People of color actually live within their carbon footprint. So this is the results of literally extraction, and extraction is always defined as fossil fuel. But for me, it's also extraction of our labor.
Right.
And also people think that climate just started and environmental justice, but this started in the slave cabins. When people were denied health and food and the kinds of things that sustain life.
It kind of is sort of indirectly repeating itself.
Absolutely, absolutely,
And
yeah,
so, and you just mentioned like the Navajo reservation is really being hit hard with
absolutely.
this COVID-19. And so, in closing, can you just share with everyone the impact you feel it's had on the environment as well as the air quality?
So one of the things that we've heard about COVID is that it can be carried in pollution. And so in EJ communities, whether it's the South Bronx, Red Hook, Sunset Park, the Lower East Side, the communities that have all the power plants, the waste transfer stations, a lot of the polluting infrastructure, those are the communities that have a historic profile of health disparities. And so it is carried in the PM 2.5, the fine particulate matter. And so we are breathing that stuff in and are more likely to be impacted, not just because of historical neglect, but also because our communities are saturated with pollution. So it is completely connected. And for us, it wasn't a surprise that it was our communities that would be hit the hardest. But it was,
So what,
yeah,
so,
go
yeah,
ahead.
no,
Yeah.
it's wonderful that we're even having this discussion. And so, in closing, I think it's important that our people understand the importance of just being woke, and understanding that this nobody's saying that it's anybody's fault in your upbringing or whatever, but there's a sense of prevention that could be exercised. And so, I believe you guys offer this level of education.
Yeah, and not just us. So you guys are in the Bronx, and in the Bronx, you've got the Point, you've got Nos Quedamos, you've got YMPJ. There are organizations that are environmental justice organizations that have been working to make the Bronx cleaner and healthier. In Brooklyn, it's UPROSE, it's El Puente. We are members of the New York City Environmental Justice Alliance, and we aren't just coming up with local solutions. We're also pushing for citywide legislation and have been successful in pushing citywide legislation to make our communities more breathable and healthier. The problem and the downside, and this will be another program, is how our amenities and the victories that we've had have led to the gentrification of our communities, right? It's almost like we can only afford to live there when they are toxic, when they're polluting, when they harm our health, which is a fundamental injustice. It almost disencourages people from fighting for cleaner air. But we have to fight for it because we're talking about a legacy and generations of people just growing up with asthma, with not being able to breathe. And Puerto Rico, as far as I know, leads in the world in terms of the number of people with asthma per capita.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And right now, that's actually what's being challenged is our breath of air,
Yes.
our breath to breathe freely.
Yeah. Yeah. And but we fight. We're warriors.
That's
You
what
know.
you are. And we are so happy to have you here. Yes, leading the way in our climate fight. Yeah. Thank you so much for the time that you were able to share with us and the information that you provided. Climate warrior Elizabeth Yeampierre, who's also the executive director of UPROSE. And I just love how you just spread it. You're really putting it out there for everyone to just get a piece of the information and really become a collective in this fight against being a stand for our community.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm really honored to be on your show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm so happy that you recovered.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And once again, you guys, for more information on climate justice, you can visit uprose.org. All right, so don't go anywhere because Bobby C's Weekly Sports Roundup is coming up next.